All right.
And we're
We good? All right. Good morning, everybody. So today is Daf Gimel, Mesachas Pesachim. We left off at the bottom. Actually, I forgot what it was like to to have blat where which you don't have to sort of break your head over. But all right, Baruch Hashem, as we continue through Pesachim. So at the bottom, we left off yesterday on Beis, Amud Beis, the bottom line. 3 words from the last 3 words at the bottom. So we're discussing. We had the lashon in the Mishnah of Or Le'abasar, and the Gemara starts off with a question of what is this or? Is it day? Is it night? So we had a machlokes. Seemingly, we had a machlokes as to there was day or night, and we tried to bring various proofs from psukim. Those were not successful. We pushed off that perhaps those, some of those weren't referring to day and night. It was referring to light versus, darkness, and therefore not necessarily telling us a time as to when to go ahead and check, because, in theory, you could still check in the morning, during, it could be day or it could be, right, it could be day, but it could be darkness or light even in the evening. So we didn't really have a proof, but then we sort of started bringing proofs from different brises where it uses the word or to refer to the evening, and that will continue. So the bottom is Meisve Marzutra. So Marzutra, he asked the kasha from another brisa, is Hamapelas or Shmonim Ve'achad. So we're not going to get into the halachas over there, but the Torah says that a woman who gives birth to a female, right, she is tameh for 14 days. Then after that, the next 66 days, she is considered to be tahara. Any blood that's seen then is tahara. She is not tameh. And then on the 81st day, you go ahead and she brings karbanos, right? Karbanos for yoledis, for giving birth. Now, hamapelas l'shmonim v'echad. If a woman goes ahead and she miscarries on the or l'shmonim v'echad, so l'chayra means, right? Pashas and the brises we're going to continue, which will eventually be a proof, right? Basically, the night of the 81st, i.e., right after the 80th day, right? Because the 81st day you bring karbanos. So on the night before, she's supposed to bring karbanos. She has a miscarriage then, and also a woman also brings karbanos for the mapelas. She would also require for that. So Beis Shammai paitrim mikorban. Beis Shammai says since she didn't enter the 81st day, it's sort of a continuation from the 80 days. She does not have to bring extra karbanos for that miscarriage. And Ubeis Hill machayim. Ubeis Hill says yechayiv. So Amru Lahem Beis Hill the Beis Shammai. So Beis Hill says Beis Shammai. So Maishna or Lishmonim V'Yechad Miyom Shmonim V'Yechad. What's the difference between the night of the 81st day, i.e., the eve, right, the night before, versus the 81st day itself? Right? If we hold that a woman can become tameh, right, on the 81st day, right, and from Mapella. So certainly, the night before, right, is also so. And now, so what's the proof? What's the difference between the night of the 81st versus the day of the 81st? So obviously, or is not referring to the day, or is referring to the night before. So Shema Mina, indeed, learn from here that the word or refers to the evening, the night of. So when we bring it back to our Mishnah, right? So Or Le'abasar means the night of the 14th, i.e. the case we gave an example was, let's say Friday night was Pesach, which is the 15th of Nisan. So therefore, Or Le'Arbevechad would be Arbevechad, right? So would be the night before, would be Thursday evening. So in another case, so Shmamina or so who Shmamina. So indeed, learn from here that the word or means the evening before Shmamina. So Meisve, another kashi or lishlishi. You might think, now we know by karbanos have different times of when one can go ahead and eat the karbanos, right? And the shlamim, right? The Torah says, right? So you get 2 days. Most karbanos you have that evening, right? The next day. And then you only have that day and that evening, and then the next day you have to go ahead and burn it. But we say by Shlom, you have an extra day, right? So you have that day, the night, the following day to go ahead and eat it. And the third day, you go ahead and you burn it. So the question is, what about the night before the third day, right? So it says, So Yachol Yanachol or Lashlishi, the evening of the third, and it was the night before the third Vadinu, right? And you have a logical argument. That other karbanos kachim are eaten in one day, and the shlamim are eaten, they have 2 days. So malu halon laila achar hayom afkan laila achar yom. Just like over there, right? When you have you have the day to eat it, right? So you say you have the night afterwards. So too, maybe a shlamim, right? Since you have 2 days, I can also have the night after the second day, right? Therefore, it says right? So it says over there, all right, when you bring the korban, you should eat it, and the next day you got to eat it. The leftovers ad yom, right? Only the day, only the second day. But od yom ahu nechol, only while it's still day in the second day can you go ahead and eat it. Then nechol lior shlishi, you can't go ahead and eat it on the night after the second day, which would be or l'shlishi, would be the evening already of the third. Now yochol yisreif miyad, you might think you have to go ahead and burn it right on this second night, right after the second day. Miad, so the din who, and maybe you can make arguments. Right, by zvachim you have 1 day, then 1 night, and shlamim you have 2 days and a night. Samalo and teichel just like by zvachim you go ahead and you burn it right after you're allowed to go ahead and eat it. In other words, you're allowed to eat it during the day, and that night, the next morning, you have to go ahead and burn it. Afkan. So too over here. By shlamim, maybe after my permissible time to eat it, which is day, night, then day, then once it gets into the second night, which is or l'shlishi, right? Maybe you have to burn it then. So take the achilas streifa tamaloimer. Therefore, it says v'hanayser mibaser hazach b'yom hashlishi beis yisaref. It says over there beferish in the pasuk that you should go ahead and burn it on the third day. So you don't go ahead and burn it on the eve of the third day, the or l'shlishi. Rather, you have to wait till the day itself. And it says, so you only burn it during the day and not during the night. Now, what's the proof? By the fact that we're identifying the night before the third day is called or l'shlishi. Alma or orsahu shmamino. Indeed, we can see from here that the word or, when it's used in the Brises, is referring to, or the Mishnayos is referring to the evening before. And finally, another proof, Tashma, come and listen, Orshel Yom Kippurim. Mispalal Sheva Misvad. So a person on the or of Yom Kippurim, the night of Yom Kippur, one says Shemona Esrei with 7 brachos, right? You have the 3 before, the 3 after, and there's 1 bracha in the one long bracha in the middle, and there's also a vidui there, and Shachris, and for Shachris of Yom Kippurim, Mispalal Sheva Misvada. Once again, you say Shemona Esrei of 7 brachos, and then with vidui. But Musaf Mispalal Sheva Misvada, and with Musaf you do 7 brachos in the Shemona Esrei and Misvada, and B'mincha Mispalal Sheva Misvada. What is it? No. All right. And on Mincha, you also do a Shemona Esrei of 7 brachos, Mizvada with Vidui. And Ba'arvis, now, Marav Motzei Yom Kippurim, Mispalo Me'ein Shemona Esrei. You say an abridged version of Shemona Esrei. The Gemara over there in brachos discusses how one goes ahead and incorporates all, right? So you have normally 18 brachos and Shemona Esrei, right? So it's 3 before, 3 after, then you have 12 in the middle. So basically incorporates all 12, mentioning all the things that we were mavarich during Shemona Esrei. Basically in an abridged version, you do one abridged version for your Marav Motzei Yom Kippur. And Rabbi Chanin ben Galil, no, Mishum Avosav, he says the name of his fathers, right? Mispalel Shemona Esrei Shlemos, right? No, you say the full Shemona Esrei like we do during the week, a regular Shemona Esrei in Motzei Yom Kippur. Why? Because you have to go ahead and insert Havdalah Atachonontanu in Chanin Adas. Alma. So what do you see from this brisa? Or sahu shmamino. We see over here that it identifies the night of Yom Kippurim as or Shom Yom Kippurim. So we see over here that or clearly means the evening. And finally, the last proof of the day and the mic drop is Tashma. Come and listen. The Tani Debei Shmuel Lele Arba Asar Baitkim Es Hachametz Leor Haner. It says Beferish doesn't call it Or Labasar. It calls Lele the night of the 14th. In other words, it's telling you, defining it clearly, the night of the 14th. We check the chametz using the light of a candle. Alma or Sahu. So we see clearly that it is light. Okay, we say that clearly it's referring to the evening. Now the question is Ella. So we had when we started off the Gemara, right? When the Gemara started off, right, there was a machlokes between Rav Huna called it one called it night, the other one called it day and night. So how could there be an argument as to what it refers to? So Ella, Bein Rav Huna, Bein Rav Yehuda, the Kuliyama or Arsa. Really, everybody agrees that when it refers to the Mishnah as or is referring to the 14th, right? The Filei Pligas and Machlekes, Marki Yasrei. Each one basically used it to describe how they describe the evening. Vasi Rav Huna, Kari Nagi, right? So in the place of Rav Huna, right, they called it light, right? So even though it's darkness, right, they called it light, right? It was to see why. Vasi Rav Yehuda, Kari Leila, right? And in the place of Rav Yehuda, they called it night. So in other words, why did they call it light if it's what we're referring to darkness? Because basically it's light, basically the time of lack of light. So it's like a lashon nakiya, as we'll soon see. But Tana Didon, my time like Tani Lele. So in our Tana, why did he not write the word Lele Yom Kippurim? Actually, Lele Arba Asar. So he wanted to go ahead and use not use the word night, right, which sort of signals darkness and bad things. So I called it or referring to the evening. It's called a Lishnam Al Yehudinakit. And Rabbi Shimon Levi, like Rabbi Shimon Levi, Damar Shimon Levi, Le'aylam Al Yaitse Adam Devar Megun Rapiv. A person should not go ahead and basically use davar maguna, shouldn't use not derogatory terms, but he should try and always use the nicer term, right, when referring to anything, right? Oftentimes there's two different ways to describe things. So he's using lashon nakiya, or he didn't want to say davar maguna. Shaharei ikma kasav shmona oisios lahaitzi davar maguna, because you find by the psukim, we'll soon see some examples where the Torah even went out of its way by having 8 extra letters just to avoid, right, saying a davar maguna. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, min habehema tahira, umin habehema asher einena tahira. Right? It says from the animal which is tahira, and from an animal which is, it should have just said an animal which is tameh, right? But it used the longer lashon of einena tahira, right, which is 11 letters, right? And it could have just said tameh, right? It could have just said behema, right? Tameh, right? Which is 3 letters. So it inserted an extra 8 letters just to teach you this lesson that better to go ahead and use a lashon nakiya or a positive term than a negative term. And Rav Papa Martesha, Rav Papa says, I have an example of his 9 extra letters. The pasuk says, Kieh lecha ish asher lo yeh tahor mikra laila, right? It could have just said, Kieh lecha ish tameh, right? Why did it say asher lo yeh tahor, right? So mikra laila. So over there, once again, the extra letters, right? They had, right, in that case, 9 extra letters, and Ravina Omar Eser, right? He actually says Eser over there because there was an extra word, extra letter in the pasuk. Let me just find it, which word had the extra letter, right? So it said over there, so it says there, there's an extra vav, right? In the case of, I think in the case of tahor, right? Tahor is written with the vav, and therefore it's actually not 9 extra letters, it's actually 10 extra letters. Vav did right, excuse me. And Ravina Amar Eser vav did tahor. The vav of the word tahor, it could have just written tes hey reish, and it was tes hey vav reish, and therefore an extra 10 letters just to avoid writing the word tameh. And Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar sheish esrei. I have another pasuk even longer than Shnamar. Ki Amar mikrahu bilti tahor hu kilo tahor. It says over there, right? So the pasuk says, when describing, says right there, it says there was an incident, right, that occurred. It was a mikrahu, right, and it says bilti tahor, right? He's not tahor, who kilo tahor, right? He has not been clean. So it could have just said he's tameh. Why did it do this, all the extra lashonos or extra words? Once again, to teach you that it's better to say the positive than to say the negative. Better to say something with lishna ma'alya versus davar maguna. And Tanya debated Rabbi Yishmael, and it was also taught that the brisa in the house of Rabbi Yishmael, Yelam Yisapir Adam Lashon Nakiya, right? A person should always be Misapir, use the Lashon Nakiya, Sharei Bezav, Karo Merkav, the Isha, Karo Moshe, right? It says by a Zav, it says when he's riding, right? But it says by a woman, it says she's sitting, right? When it comes to Tuma, right? Now, I could just say that sitting is also could have said by the Zav, but why did I say riding by a woman, right? Because riding, right? The woman is sitting on a horse or type of animal is not as tznius, right? Legs are separated, it's not as tznius. So therefore, use the lashon of sitting as opposed to riding. And furthermore, another pasuk says, "Vativchar lashon arumim." Right? You should go ahead and choose a lashon that is arumim, right? That is wise, that is smart. It also says over there that he should go ahead and say with his lips. He should say stuff that is refined and proper. So my v'aimer, why does it give you extra psukim? It already gave a source. It says Mishkav versus Reichev. Or Merkah versus Moshe. So maybe it just means if you just had it, maybe only the Torah has to use lashon nakiya, but when one is speaking, he doesn't have to. But when it comes to Chazal, lo, maybe no. So Tashma, therefore it says therefore it says choose wise lashon. And maybe this is only referring to, we already covered the Torah, and maybe only also the Rabbanan about the Alma, but rather just speaking regular words over to one's friends. Low, maybe you don't have to go ahead and choose lashon nakiya. Therefore, it brings another pasuk, another source where it says So over here, your lips should go ahead and choose a refined expression. Now, the Torah says, "I v'isha like siv ba merkav." What? So going back to the point before, right? We're not going to let it slide, right? You said it doesn't say the word roichev, right? So the sharash roichev, riding, when it comes to a woman with an animal. The pasuk says, "Vatakam Rivka ben Arosah v'rekiven al gemalayim." It says over there that Rivka and her naros, they went ahead and they rode on the camels, right? So you see, riding on the camels. It says there lashon of the terkavna. Right, so Gemara answers, no, Hasam shouldn't be used to the Gemalim or since over there is referring to camels, right? Now, camels a very high animal, right? You go up, right? Many of you, I'm sure, have all going on your family trips to Israel, right? Then everyone takes the turn of sitting on the camel and it goes all the way up, right? It's very dangerous, right? Everyone gets scared. There's always that one that freaks out, right? So the point is that because of the fear of a camel so high up, so therefore, it's the normal derech to use a lashon of racha, but doesn't sort of a person gives them imagery, right? Is more of the danger of the camel. I vaksi. The pasuk says vayikach Moshe ishtov as banav ekavim al chamor. Moshe took his wife and his sons, and they rode on a donkey or donkeys. So also it says over there to a smaller animal, to a donkey. So where what says hasam over there mishum. Turn the page. Mishum banav. Since over there she was riding with her children, so therefore it's one does not the imagery is not of a single woman on a donkey, rather it's a mother and her children. It says over there by Abigail that she was recheves al chamor. So Gemara gives three terutzim. So Hasim should be a susa Delilah. Over there, maybe she was. It says recheves because it was night, it was darkness, or who? That's the normal manner to don't just sit sideways on a donkey. But you have to sit up, because it's night, it's dark, you can't see the road, it's bumpy. Or mishum be a susa Delilah leko. Maybe it wasn't because of night. However, mishum be a susa de David. Maybe over there she was going to go ahead and plead from David on behalf of her husband. So maybe over there it was fear of David. Or you can say over there, maybe there was no fear of David. However, Mishum B'Yasusa Dahar, maybe since she was going on a mountainous range, so therefore that there was over there, I guess, danger, and therefore that was the reason why her legs were separated, on the animal, and that's how the description of the Torah gave it. Fine. Uberaisa milak siv tame. So 1 second. So you said before, whenever you're going to say tame, the Torah will put in extra words just to avoid the word tame, right? Because it has a negative connotation, and it uses loy tahara. But what do you mean? Uberaisa milak siv tame. It doesn't say tame. It's elo kol heichadi adadininu mishtay b'lashon nakiya. When there's no difference, then it uses lashon nakiya. However, if it causes too many letters, right, which it often does, so therefore, then the Torah does prefer to go ahead and use the shorter lashon in order to say. So therefore, we'll say tamei. Like Rav Huna Amarav says, some say Amarav Huna Amarav Mishum Rav Meir. Person should always organize his limudim derech tzara, right? In a short version, in an easier way to remember. in order that one could remember his studies. If it's too long and too verbose, then he might not be able to go ahead and remember. Right? Well, what do you mean? So you're saying, right, that when it's even, it uses lashon nakiya, right? Right? The word rocheves and yosheves, right, are both 5 letters, right? So why would you ever choose, right, rocheves over yosheves, right? V'kama v'rocheves, right? So the Gemara says no, rocheves kasi. It says Racheves without a vav, right? So you can go ahead and ask, okay, right? Yosheves without a vav, right? It's also 4 letters without the vav, right? So the point is that normally when they're saying it's teaching you this point to try and use lashon nakiya, right? Try to teach this point to try to use lashon nakiya. Therefore, wrote the other one. But really, the Torah oftentimes writes, the derogatory or the one with negative connotation, that term, that is often done because that's the shortest way. Because a person should go ahead and be masader his limud and b'lashon katsara. However, there are times when the Torah did not do that just to teach you this point to teach you that you should try to use lashon nakiya. Fine. So that was that. New case. So we're around a third of the way down on Gimel Amud Beis. So Hanu Trei Talmidei Dehavi Yasvi Kamei Derav. There were 2 Talmidei who were sitting before Rav. Chad Omar Shavsinen Hai Shmaitza Kedavar Acher Misanke. Right. So this teachings, right, basically caused me to become like a tired. Misanke is like tired. Davar Acher. Davar Acher refers to a pig. Like it makes me like a tired pig. Right? Chad Omar, and one of them said, Shavasina Hai Shmaitza Kigdi Misanke. And one of them says, no, it made me feel like a tired gedi, a tired kid. However, the Rav, they're no longer basically associated with the one who used the lashon of pig, right? Pig is a davar tameh, and therefore he chose to use the parable of calling himself, like a tired pig, and therefore Rav did not continue his limudim with that Talmud, but he learned with the other. And Hanu Trei Talmidei the Haviyasi coming to Hillel. One time there were 2 Talmidim sitting in front of Hillel. The Chad Minai, one of them was Rabbi Yechim and Zakkai. It was Rabbi Yechim and Zakkai. And some say Kamei de Rebbe. Others say that this Maisa happened. Rebbe was 2 Talmidim were sitting in front of Rebbe. The Chad Minai Rabbi Yechim, and Rabbi Yechim was one of them. So Chad Omar Mipnei Ma Baitzim B'Tahara Ve'ein Maiskin B'Tahara. Why does one, when he goes ahead and he harvests grapes, he has to do it with B'Tahara? And however, when he harvests olives, he does not have to do it with tahira. All right, so he doesn't use the lashon of tameya, right? He uses the lashon of ein mesakim with tahira, right? And v'chadam, the other student said, "Mipnei ma baitzim b'tahira u'maiskim b'tuma." And the other Talmud asks the same kasha, but he asks it a little differently. He says, "Why does one harvest grapes? He has to do it with tahira, but when he harvests olives, he can do it with tuma." So he uses the lashon tuma there, as opposed to using the lashon of not tahira. So Omar, says the Rebbe, depending on which version you have, whether it was Hillel or it was Rebbe, I think, right? Hillel. Yeah, it was either Hillel or Rebbe. So what do you say? Omar, muftachni b'zeh shemayra ha'Rebbe Yisrael. All right, it's clear to me, right? That, I won't be too surprised if this one teaches Torah to all Klal Yisrael. I see his speech is a very fine manner, and it was not too much longer until this Talmud basically became a teacher of Klal Yisrael. Fine. Next, Maisa. So Hanu Tlasa Kahani. There were 3 Kohanim. Chad Omar Lahu Higiani Kaful. The other one says, well, I guess when they got their matanos, their portions from being Kohanim, from the lechem. So one of them says, right, from the lechem upon him. So he says, my portion was like that of a bean. My portion was like that of a tail of a lizard. Right, very strange lashon of using a tamei animal. And and they checked after him. And they found that he was pasal from kahuna. He was a chalal. But the verse is, how can you go ahead after you give him lechem upon him, go ahead and check his lineage, right? Once someone is at the mizbeach, you don't go ahead and check his lineage, right? You can assume that since he's doing the avoda, right, that he has good lineage. You don't go ahead and check his lineage afterwards. So Shevetz Puzzle. Don't say no. They found that there was he was a chol from his lineage. Ella ema shachatz puzzle. Right. Rather say that he himself he basically was not he was not fit to serve in terms of that he didn't have I guess proper midos, or he didn't act properly, and that's what they found him, not an actual psul of basically if his mother married someone who I guess, or his father married someone who was not fit for him, whether she was divorcee or something, or if boy sema shani hasam dihu dara nafshe. Or maybe he himself puzzled him by the fact that he said this, right? Normally we don't go ahead and check lineage without cause. But if someone goes ahead and gives us reason to go ahead and believe that perhaps there is some sort of psul in his lineage, then that perhaps could be checked. Fine, next case. Hahu aramai dahavi solik v'achil psachim b'Yushalayim. There was a certain Armenian, right? He used to go ahead. He used to always have the Jewish holiday of Passover on his calendar, and he says, what I like to do? I like to go to Yerushalayim and I eat from they put a good barbecue. So I go to the free barbecue and I get meat from the Korban Pesach. So Omar says, it says any ben nechar, any foreigner should not eat from it. Or any uncircumcised person should not eat from it. And I go ahead and I get the best pieces from the Korban Pesach, right? So he's sort of mocking the psukim, and he said this. Because you go ahead and you get the good fatty tail, right, which is not eaten, right? No, I never do. So he says, no, when you go over there, go over there and tell them you want the fatty tail. That's the part of the Korban Pesach. That's the best part. You want the fatty tail for your portion. So Kisalek, when he went up there, Amarlahu Mela Safali, he says, go ahead. I get I don't want this part of it. I want the leg. I want the fatty tail. So Amarle, Aliyah, Legavot, right? So what are we talking about? The fatty tail gets burnt. It goes on these beach, right? So Amarle, so that's him. Man Amarlechahachi. Who told you to say this, right? So Amarlu, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. They said Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So they said, wait, it doesn't make sense, right? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, right? The wise sage would tell someone to go ahead and eat his fatty tail for his Korban Pesach, for his offering, right? Because they didn't know he wasn't Jewish. So Amru my high to come on. So he says, okay, let's check into this person, right? Something doesn't make sense here. So they checked into it. Badku Basar, they checked out. They found this Armenian who they katlua and they killed him. And Shalchulei Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, they said to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Shalom Lecha Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, right? Peace to you, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. The At ben Etzivin, despite the fact that you live in Etzivin, right? Mitzudascha Perusa B'Yishalayim, but your trap, your net, extends all the way to Yerushalayim. So even though yes, you're living there, you actually, your wisdom follows and continues Yerushalayim. That you basically helped us point out that this person was pretending to be a Jew and to take from the Korban Pesach, and you basically notified us through your wisdom. And Rav Kahana Cholish, one time Rav Kahana was very weak. So Shadru Rabban Rav Shua Berei. So they sent for Rabbi Shua Berei, the son of Rav Idi. So they told him, Zil Baduk. My dine. We heard Rav Kahana is very sick. Go visit Rav Kahana and see how he's doing it. So also he got there as quick as he can. But he saw that he already passed away. So Karl Levushe. So he basically he tore his clothes, right? He showed a sign of mourning over the loss of Gadol Yisrael. But he turned the tear, behind his shirt around so they couldn't be seen. And he was crying, and he came. So right? So they saw him, that he was there, and he said he died. So he said he died. Kamina. Right? I never told you he died. I don't want to go ahead and tell you that he's dead, but you could obviously see from the my torn garments, what the situation was. Right? The one who goes ahead and gives bad news or evil news, he is a fool. So in other words, he didn't want to report it, but they obviously saw, for the fact that he was crying and the fact that he rent his garments, that Rav Kahana did pass. And Yechanan Chakuka Nafik L'Kriyasa. So Yechanan Chakuka, so he went out to the village Kiyasa, and he went there. Samarle Chitinasa Yafos, right? He said, "Oh, is the wheat crop? Is it good? Is it ready to go?" right? Samarlem, Sa'irim Nasu Yafos, right? He didn't want to go ahead and report to them that, the wheat didn't grow in. So he said the barley is in, right? But he talked about barley, which is basically animal feed as compared to wheat. Samarlem, say, says go over there and basically go ahead, tell the horses and the donkeys, you're talking about barley, you're talking about the animal feed, right? Because over there the pasuk says, right, the barley, right, and the tevin, the straw, those go to the horses, ula rachash, right, and also to, I guess the other animals, those eat it. So in other words, why are you telling us about about animal feed, right? You should have told us about wheat, right? But he didn't want to say negative thing about the wheat. He didn't want to report bad news. So what did he do? My havi le'lameimer. What should he have said? So when they said to him, "Hey, is the wheat crop ready for this year?" He should have said, "Ishtake nasa chitin yafos." He could have said, "Oh, last year's wheat was ready, was very good." And they could infer from there that the wheat this year was not ready yet. Inami, or he could have said, "Adashim nasa yafos." So he could have said the lentils, which is another human food, are good, and they can apply from there. Or understand from there that that the wheat was not ready yet, but only the lentils were as the other. So he should have used referring to human food and not animal food. And once again, but he could have said human food, but not. He didn't want to say bad news about the wheat. So therefore, he could have spoken about other human produce. All right, we'll stop here at the 2 dots. It's Hashem. Tomorrow we'll continue here. Everybody have a wonderful day. And once again, yes, it's a nice change from Erevin.
Go.
Have a good day.